Hi, how you doing? Let's talk about grappling. So, a few years ago, when I made the decision to commit to training in BJJ on a regular basis, I spoke about it here in a number of videos. In general, people were hugely supportive. Let's be honest, I'm not a young man and I've had a few fairly serious injuries, including one that I thought was going to, and in reality probably should have, put me out of training for good. I guess it either hit a nerve with people or was entertaining content, but there was one chap who was somewhat less supportive. He said I was being stupid, making a big mistake, I was inevitably going to injure myself again, seriously, and that he'd check back in a year or so to see how right he was. He even said he'd reached out to my old wrestling coach Wade Shallers about me. Now, I don't remember if he came back or not, and I've spent several hours searching for the comments he made before giving up, but what he said has stuck with me. Partly because I was a little surprised that someone would be that much of a dick, but also partly because I very much wanted to prove him wrong. And so whilst this is, in fact, a bit of an update into how my training is going, it's also a bit of an opportunity for me to stick two fingers up at him. If you want English, you might want to Google that. So, how is it going? Well, I'd say pretty well. I haven't seriously injured myself, I am still training, and I'm having a great time. My fingers hurt, but I've learned to tape them in a way that helps, which, let's be honest, probably needs a video of its own. My shoulder hurts, but I actually injured that about 14 years ago at the gym and have managed to ignore it pretty effectively ever since. My hand hurts, but that's because I broke my scaphoid many years ago when training with Wade, and my training partner slammed me. But there are certainly no new injuries, a lot of aches and pains, but I've come to regard them as old friends. It kind of feels weird when I don't ache these days. I try to train at least twice a week. I definitely have this weird disconnect where my brain wants me to train more and my body most certainly does not. And twice a week seems to strike a happy medium for a 51-year-old guy who's still out of shape, if not quite so badly as I was 2 to 3 years ago. And that's clearly enough to progress, because, well, I got this. I want to be completely honest here. I have very mixed feelings about this belt. Part of me is extremely proud. Getting a purple belt from someone who's known to be a bit stingy with his gradings is no mean feat, and purple is a serious level. Blue was lovely. I was thrilled when I got that, but it felt almost like a reflection of all the catch I'd done and all the work I'd put in before settling down in Jiu Jitsu. But this is definitely a reflection of the countless hours playing off my back, getting smashed, trying to understand the nuances of guard, trying thousands of omoplatas, triangles, scissor sweeps, and failing miserably until, seemingly out of the blue, I slowly but surely started actually hitting them. And I started to feel comfortable in guard, until I finally understood why people talk about it being seductive. I genuinely got to the point where I'd be fighting to get someone in my guard, and then feel disappointed when the sweep I went for worked perfectly and I was suddenly on top again. But as well as the pride in my development, the pride in my training partners, the pride in my coaches, the whole club, I also feel something else. I still feel, right down inside me, hidden away, just a tiny bit, like I still don't actually do jiu-jitsu. I'm just a catch guy who happens to be wearing a gi. And that's worth mentioning because I can genuinely say that I love gi. Yeah, there you go. I've said it. I love gi. Way back in 2016, I made a video wearing a borrowed Gracie Barra gi, talking about how I'd essentially gone along to BJJ and got my ass thoroughly kicked. I blamed the gi, which in part was fair. My significantly limited grappling ability was another issue, but let's gloss over that for now. In it, I talk about how a mate of mine had started a local club and I'd gone along. The weird thing is that I'm at the level he was then, and he's got a black belt from Roger Gracie now. The even weirder thing is that I now love being the guy on the other end of all the issues I describe in that video. The fact that gi chokes are a thing. The fact that if I get a nice deep cross-collar grip and you're in my guard, you ain't breaking it. And I'm about 3/4 of the way to a scissor sweep and a paper cutter. I guess the other thing that I probably should talk about, even if only briefly, is quite how much time I've spent rolling. I've alluded to this in a lot of the videos I've made over the last couple of years, but coming into this from HEMA, even if it was via catch along the way, tends to give you a really distorted view of how much exhausting, draining, all-consuming work you have to do in jiu-jitsu or wrestling if you want to progress. You can't just drill some techniques and then do a quick round or two. You have to roll a lot. At Country Boy Jiu Jitsu, the club I train at, we tend to warm up with slow, gentle rolling. It's thoughtful, ideally a cerebral exercise as well as a physical one, but in reality the pace steps up pretty quickly. After a while, we'll look at a takedown or two and maybe some techniques, but then we get back to rolling again. It's not unusual to get 10 to 15 rounds in a session. At the lower levels, it might not make you particularly technical, but it certainly makes you tough. It forces you, at least at those lower grades, to learn how to survive and to prioritise your defence. And then, when you have a solid defence you're able to trust will keep you safe, you can start experimenting with attacking. It's not quite the ecological approach that seems to have so many people frothing at the mouth right now, but it's definitely leaning in that direction. Anyway, that probably needs its own video too. I guess this is the point where I draw all the different threads of this video together into one coherent point. Only I'm not really sure I have one. It's more just an opportunity to say hi. Hi. To let you know I'm still here, still training, still making videos. And for the second, or maybe third time in my life, I'm in a situation where this is now a full-time gig for me, so you should fully expect to see more of me both here and on other social channels. Instagram's doing pretty well at the moment. I've got some big plans for this channel. Whether I'll be able to make them a reality or not, I don't actually know. But if there's one thing that Jiu Jitsu has taught me, it's that small, incremental improvements are the best way to progress. So keep your eyes peeled. And if you aren't subscribed, I really hope you'll consider it. Have a great day.